points leader and qualifying for the Players' Championship, but he needs a really strong weekend. Top 32 yesterday, but he needs a top 8 today and maybe a win to get back in this thing. Now, of course, we know he's capable of that. When we were in Providence, he was 1 game win away from going back-to-back.
Yeah, and a lot riding on this tournament for Andrew Tenjum as well, at risk of falling out of the top 16, going into New Jersey, trying to lock up 2 buys for the Invitational.
Again, he's from around the Madison area, so I was very surprised to see him here in Syracuse, but hey, summer vacation. Have a little fun, do what you want to do. Him and his buddies from Nerd Rage Gaming did make the trip out here to Syracuse. So it's good to see them here, and we're going to watch them do battle against Merriam, who did start off with Queer and Ranger.
Both players playing the decks they're known for. Ross playing Elves, and Tenjum loves the blue good stuff decks.
Yeah, he's been playing Charlotte's Book for some time now, as Merriam is going to cast an Elvish Visionary, cantrip, and draw a card. You saw Tenjum start off with an Underground Sea into a Deathrite Shaman on his second turn. He'll play a Polluted Delta. He'll sacrifice that, going down to 19 in the process, and we'll see what his second turn will be.
Game 1, Tenjum is really short on cards that matter in the matchup. He's very slow to the board. He only has 3 Force of Wills, 2 Hymns, and 2 Thoughtseizes as Disruption. 4 Abrupt Decays as well, so very light on hate for the Elves matchup. Sometimes you see these Charlotte's Bug decks, they add something like 1 or 2 copies of Toxic Deluge to the main deck to help out with this matchup. Andrew with none of that, so he's going to probably struggle in Game 1, I would guess.
Yeah, it seems like the Charlotte's Bug deck, from what we can tell, struggles in Game 1s a lot, especially against combo decks. Then they try to sure things up after sideboard. When they're playing against other, fair decks like Delver strategies, they're actually quite good against those in Game 1.
Yeah, robust removal, a lot of 2-for-1s. Good stuff going on here if you're playing against most creature decks in the format.
It is a Charlotte's Agent, so that means it's time to Cascade. And we will see a Tarmogoyf come directly into play. That'll be a 1-2, and we'll get out our handy-dandy Tarmogoyf die so we can keep track of that for you guys at home, as Merriam will untap. He will take a draw here.
Actually, it's a 0-1 right now.
Oh, the land's gone. I take it back. I thought that was in the graveyard. It's actually been exiled via Deathrite Shaman. So just ignore me. I'm new at this.
It's okay.
I'm sorry.
Happens, man. If that's the worst error the broadcast makes this weekend, we're doing pretty good.
I'll keep that in mind. That's a good save by you. Merriam's going to tap 2 mana here. Let's see what he's going to try to set up here for the 3rd turn of the game. It's going to be a Wirewood Symbiote. And now, Ross with 1 mana left. Now, Tenjum, what actually happens here, he may have a Force of Will, but it doesn't look like it. So there's Nettle Sentinel. Merriam now going to play Windswept Heath. Doesn't have a Cradle yet, but you can feel he's setting up for a big turn.
Yeah, and because Tenjum's really putting no pressure on him, he can take his time, draw cards with Elvish Visionary plus Wirewood Symbiote. Not any big rush to do anything. Can build up a hand that can go over the top of a Force of Will, or a single discard spell, or a single removal spell, or whatever the case may be.
And the Symbiote does cause so much trouble when it's out there, so let's see what Tenjum can put together on this turn. Again, he does have a Charlotte's Agent. That Tarmogoyf is just an 0-1 right now. There's a Deathrite Shaman. Now there's a Polluted Delta. That can be fuel for either the Deathrite Shaman or the Tarmogoyf, depending on how Tenjum does want to play it. So down to 18 he's going to go. We'll see what land he does want to search out. Merriam, a very skilled player with Elves. Been playing this deck for some time now.
He has had a lot of open serious success with it. Nearly went to back-to-back in Providence a few months ago, winning the Standard Open, losing in the finals to Dave Shields playing Death and Taxes.
Yeah, which is such a great matchup for Merriam. You could definitely tell the disappointment on his face after he lost that match. Really couldn't believe it, and we really couldn't either.
Drew a lot of Crater Hooves.
Yeah.
Drew's Progenitus.
Yeah, that one too. Tenjum going to tap 2 mana here. It's going to be a Hymn to Torak from Andrew. So Merriam's going to lose a couple of cards here. It would be interesting to see if Merriam maybe activates the Symbiote to maybe bounce an Elf to his hand.
He may
He's trying to protect what he's got in the grip.
He may want some cushion here. I think for the time being, he's more likely to want to just say, I want to leave up Wirewood Symbiote this turn. Make sure that you can't Abrupt Decay anything.
Because you can see Merriam's hand right now, he does have a copy of Natural Order. That's definitely what he's setting up, his Natural Order into Greater Beam. And so he'll activate the Ranger and pick up a Forest. A little bit of cushion, as it were.
Yeah, I like this. This is kind of the play that you described with much lower risk.
So it's time to roll some dice. 6 will be a re-roll, 4 will not, so that one's gone. And now we'll do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 game. There goes that. So let's see what Ross loses and puts in the graveyard. It's a Natural Order and a Verdant Catacombs, so he ends up losing the order. Try to give himself the best opportunity to not lose that card, which I liked, but he did.
Yeah. 2 copies of Hymn to Torak in this list alongside 2 Thoughtseizes for Tenjum.
For Merriam, again, this deck can generate a whole bunch of mana, and also is a card advantage deck with Symbiote plus Elvish Visionary, so he can definitely find another copy of Natural Order, or he can even hardcast a Crater of Behemoth if necessary. He's not there just yet, but we'll see what he can find over the next couple of turns here, because he's not underneath a ton of pressure at this point.
Yeah, very realistic for this deck to cast Craterhoof Behemoth between, having access to things like Gaia's Cradle and Mana Elves. Not the hardest thing to pull off.
Wirewood will block. Well, excuse me, Elvish Visionary is going to block the Tarmogoyf, and the Wirewood will bounce the Elvish Visionary back to the hand. So 2 damage will come across via the Shardless Agent. Now Tenjum is going to activate and play another Tarmogoyf via Deathrite Shaman. So Merriam says, all right, let's sacrifice this Windswept Teeth. He's going to go get a land out of his deck, and maybe a Dryad Arbor at this point. We will see. And it will be.
Dryad Arbor does a million awesome things in this deck. Combos well with Quirion Ranger, with Gaia's Cradle, with Natural Order, all sorts of stuff. A lot of these decks initially play just 1 copy. That's kind of the industry standard in a lot of green decks that have fetch lands. Ross has moved up to 2 because there's so many times you want the second one, or just to naturally draw it.
Merriam will draw a card, another copy of Dryad Arbor here. A touch awkward. The land he's really looking for right now is Gaia's Cradle. We know that. There's the initial Visionary. He's got a backup one in his hand, so this first one's going to resolve. Merriam draws a card. And speak of the devil, and it shall appear. Gaia's Cradle is what Merriam has found. Again, he has not played a land yet, and that's certainly a good one to play. It's going to add 5 green mana. Can't forget to count that Dryad Arbor as a land. He's going to return the Visionary via the Symbiote, untap the Dryad Arbor. So he's got 3 mana floating. Draws another Cradle for the turn. Now he's down to 1, as he will draw again a Misty Rainforest.
And Ross is just turning through his deck right now, looking for Natural Order or Craterhoof Behemoth.
Yep. The mana to cast, it's not hard for him to do. That'll be his turn. And it may look like not a great one, but it's pretty gosh darn good. Abrupt Decay the draw here for Andrew.
And I think Andrew needs to shut down this Wirewood Symbiote shenanigans right now.
Yep.
I mean, a lot of damage has already been done, but he can't allow Ross to just be freely drawing this many cards.
It looks like a very innocent card drawing engine, but it is anything but that. Looks like Tenjum has a Shardless Agent to cast here potentially. And that's what will come down, so it's time to Cascade. And it's going to be a Brainstorm. So Tenjum's going to draw 3 and have to put 2 back. You see an Ancestral Vision and a Force of Will among the cards Tenjum has found.
Force of Will is a huge draw here for Andrew.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. He had no protection against a Craterhoof Behemoth or a Natural Order, but now he does.
So in conjunction with a removal spell for the Wirewood Symbiote and a counter spell for Ross's big play, plus a clock, Andrew has a good shot here of pulling off the upset in game 1. Just getting the size of the Tarmogoyf here settled.
There's an Underground Sea. I don't know, this, I thought this, well, I will say, coming into this turn, I thought things were going great for Ross. He found a Cradle, drew a couple of cards, had his card drawing engine online, but Legacy can be a pretty swingy format. The games can definitely go back and forth very quickly. Now things seem like they're great for Tenjum.
And Shardless Bug looks at so many cards in turns because of Brainstorms and Ponders, Shardless Agent for those cards, Ancestral Visions, and so forth, that it's capable of turning around a game pretty quickly. And as you mentioned, I feel like Tenjum has gone from in a lot of trouble to now has swung the game around in the matter of 1 turn.
Yeah, Decay is going to take that thing down. You have to imagine Merriam's probably going to bounce a Visionary here so he can get a card next turn, and that's exactly what he's going to do. But Force of Will causes the real problem here, and we can't forget the Tarmogoyf has just grown again into a 4/5. Now here comes Shardless Agent, along with the 2 copies of Tarmogoyf, and all of a sudden Merriam's underneath a lot of pressure. And in most circumstances, for Ross, when he's playing this deck, it's okay. If I find my payoff card, it's fine. I'll take some damage and, I'll cast Natural Order, you die. But because Force of Will plus blue cards hanging out over there, that's not the case.
Yeah, he's going to have to find a backup copy of some payoff card and do it very quickly as well, because he's facing lethal, if not this turn, but next, if he doesn't start blocking.
And we can't forget, Deathrite Shaman will help contribute to that as well.
Yeah. It's a big shot for him to take this turn here.
Yeah, I do wonder if he's interested in taking all of this damage. It'd be 4-8. That would be 10 points of damage. You go down to 7. It looks like he will take it all. So Merriam's going to go down to 7. Now Tenjum's going to pass the turn back. Merriam draws his card for the turn. It's another copy of Cradle. He doesn't need one of those, even though he can generate a lot of mana. So he's going to tap for 4 right now. He will begin by casting Elvish Visionary. That's going to resolve. So 2 mana floating. It's a Heritage Druid he's found off of that. But you can actually see his hand. It's pretty land heavy right now.
Yeah, Ross has flooded out quite badly.
Gonna play an Arbor. Again, still with 2 green mana floating. See if he's gonna cast the Heritage Druid or not.
Yeah, there's 2 worlds here. One where he just needs as many creatures who are capable of attacking next turn as possible in the event that he finds Clearhoof Behemoth, versus keeping a creature in his hand in the chance that he draws Glimpse next turn. He needs a little bit of fuel to get going.
Yeah, there could be a Glimpse turn. I did forget about that. It's kind of out. I'm so focused on Natural Order and Clearhoof Behemoth being the way that he's going to win the game, that if he does draw a Glimpse, he could maybe lead with that, and maybe Tenjum won't counter it.
Yeah, and I think that Ross has come to the determination that he does not need the Heritage Druid in play to win next turn if he finds Clearhoof Behemoth, because he has so many creatures. But if he draws Glimpse, he wants to at least have something to get the ball rolling.
Draws his card for the turn. I believe it was a land, so we'll see what ends up happening here.
But now Ross is in a really tough spot.
And everybody's coming. Deathrite Shaman representing 2 as well.
So Ross can hypothetically let the 2 Charlotte's Agents through, as he can fall to 3 and not die from the Deathrite Shaman, but he does need to block both Tarmogoyfs.
That's exactly what he does do. Picks up a Dryad Arbor from a Aquarian Ranger activation, so he's going to take 4 and go down to 3. And now Tenjum's going to cast another copy of Charlotte's Agent. So he's going to cascade by a Force of Will. There goes a Misty. This is a Brainstorm. So those 2 cards will get shuffled on the bottom here very quickly. And now Tenjum will cast that Brainstorm off the Charlotte's Agent. So 3 cards coming here for Andrew, number 16 on our Open Series leaderboard here for season number 3. He's found a Wasteland. And that one's not as good as you would think it would be, just because Ross has backup Cradles right now.
Yeah. But I mean, it still slightly improves what Andrew's got going on here, and he still gets to keep the Force of Will plus blue card in hand.
Yeah, it's better than nothing. Yeah, that's for sure. He's going to play that and fire it off on the Cradle. So Merriam's going to untap. It's time to draw. Picks up a copy of Glimpse. It's almost like he's played this deck before.
Yep, getting paid off for leaving the Heritage Druid back in his hands. Now, of course, Andrew can just stop this with that Force of Will, but he may respect Ross's holding enough to not fight over this. I'm curious to see how Andrew wants to move.
Yeah.
This feels Force of Will worthy to me, but it looks like Andrew's going to let it go.
It feels like it, but at the same time, Ross has had a lot of cards in his hand. So it's so easy for us to say, well, he just forces this, and, this game's basically over. Now here's a Heritage Druid. He's going to have to draw a card off of this, of course, and puts that on the stack. So Ross had better not forget to draw his card off of this. Could be a little bit awkward.
Yeah.
But I like the way that Ross casts this Heritage Druid. I think that's the big part, because he plays it in such a fashion and says, well, I can go bonkers if you don't counter this. This is a beautiful play.
Yeah, no, he's getting a shot now.
Yeah.
I mean, the Glimpse has resolved. If he finds creatures, he may be able to pull this off somehow.
That was a beautiful play, but he's just going to pack it up and pack it in. Giving himself just a chance to win the game is all you can really ask for in that situation, I think.
Yeah, very impressive stuff. But Tenjum finds just enough to hold on there with his pressure removals and takes game 1.
To the sideboards we shall go, and we will begin with Ross Merriam. I take a look at 3 copies of Cabal of Apathy. 3 copies of Thoughtseize, 3 Abrupt Decay, a Sylvan Library, Reclamation Sage, a Scavenging Ooze, a Kusali Pride Mage, a Royal Spine Worm, and a copy of Progenitus. Anything in particular you like here?
Well, I like the discard spells because he has to assume that Tenjum is bringing in things like Golgari Charm, things like Toxic Deluge. These are very tough cards for Ross to beat, especially when there's a lot of them going on. So I think the discard spells here are going to be good. I don't think he necessarily wants to bring in Abrupt Decay, even though there are targets for it that Andrew's bringing to the table here, because he can only bring in so many spells, and I think he needs to protect himself much more from the spells that Andrew is presumably bringing in, rather than the permanents he's putting into play.
On Tenjum's side, we'll take a look at 2 Pithy Needle, 2 Spell Pierce, 2 Nile Spellbomb, 2 Toxic Deluge, 2 Grafdigger's Cage, 2 Golgari Charm, a Force of Will, a Thoughtseize, and Inventory. Some pretty good options there for Andrew.
Yeah, he's got a lot of things to bring in here. I think the Thoughtseize is reasonable in the matchup. I'm not a big fan of him, however. I think the Force of Will should come in. The 2 Golgari Charms are excellent. 2 Grafdigger's Cages, that shuts down Natural Order, Green Sun Zenith. 2 copies of Toxic Deluge, awesome against a deck full of little creatures. 2 copies of Pithy Needle. Ross has all sorts of creatures with activated powers that are relevant. So this is a great sideboard for the matchup here. Andrew has a lot of great stuff to bring in.
Legacy is an absolute blast to watch. Every time we get to do it here on the Open Series, I truly enjoy it. And the fact that we get to cover a Legacy Grand Prix later this year is pretty great as well. Grand Prix New Jersey happening in November. Me, you, and Matthias will be covering. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I cannot wait for this event for a number of reasons. I've never covered a Legacy Grand Prix before. It's going to be in New Jersey. The competition's going to be excellent. It's going to be a lot of brainstorm-related stuff we're giving out, which I'm sure people will be very enthusiastic about. It's going to be a great tournament.
And we do want to kind of take a look at some of the things that will be happening at that tournament. Coming up in November, going to be here sooner than you think. You're going to be heading to Jersey a lot soon.
I can't wait. Also, my nephew should be born by that point, in October.
Very cool.
My sister's 5th kid, so I'm very excited about it.
5th?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well,
very excited about that. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to go back.
November 14th through the 16th, the Can't Miss Magic event of the year. We will take a look at what you get for signing up. And again, these are going to be guaranteed to all players. They will be there when you do sign up to get, again, 1 month free of premium, the promotional Batter Skull. And there you do see the Brainstorm swag. You've got the deck. You got the deck box, the play mat, and then the really cool kind of one-of-a-kind Brainstorm sleeves.
And I think these are all going to be treasured and valuable after this event is over. I mean, this is Legacy's most iconic card, or one of its most iconic cards, and the artwork on this is awesome. I expect this to be desired quite a bit.
And if you want to be a VIP, and why wouldn't you want to be? I think that's where things really do kind of heat up a little bit. You get the collectible pin, the Brainstorm pin. Those are going to be one of a kind. The Brainstorm sleeves, the deck box, the sleep-in special, the VIP badge and lanyard, along with the VIP water bottle. But I think the big selling point for VIP for this particular Grand Prix is the ballroom. Yeah,
it's going to be your own area to hang out in, relax seating, water station, charging station, private pairing boards, VIP registration line for 8-player side events. This Grand Prix is going to be large, and space and comfort will be at a premium. So I expect our VIP packages, if we have a cap on them, to definitely sell out for this event.
If you're going to go, you might as well get pre-registered now. Don't wait. MagicGP.com is where to head to get more information about this fantastic event. There's going to be a lot of great artists on hand, including John Avon.
That's a big deal. I mean, this guy does not come stateside very often. I think it's his first time in nearly a decade. He's just recently had a successful Kickstarter. I don't know if the Kickstarter is wrapped up or if it's still in progress, but very well received. Obviously, his art is treasured. I'm personally a backer, and it'll be really exciting to have him at the event. I mean, I expect the line for his autograph to be out the door.
November 14th through the 16th, the Can't Miss Magic event of the year, Grand Prix, New Jersey. We hope to see you there in Patrick's home state.
Oh, yeah. Very close to my home town, in fact, if I believe the venue has been announced.
You're so excited. It just... You know what? We're going to show you guys how it's done at the Grand Prix in Cleveland next year. We'll show you how to do it right. It'll be better than perfectly average.
Yep.
I promise. Hopefully it's not too cold. I think it's in March. Ugh. It's like a week after my birthday, though, so maybe I'll be home already with the parental units. Try to trick them into buying me dinner.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
I do know you
Gotta get that free meal.
Yeah.
They haven't done enough for me, so I gotta get that free meal.
Well, they're not the one flying across the country.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about meeting halfway with the effort.
A Green Sun Zenith here for 0.
Is unlimited appetizers at TCI Fridays too much to ask?
Yeah, that place is only 5 minutes from my house. Let's go, Mom and Dad. Death Right Shaman off of Bayou here for Tenjum. As Ross is having a little difficulty. There's the Dried Arbor he's looking for as he does shuffle back in the Green Sun Zenith.
Really important for Ross to lead off with the Zenith at this spot, even if he has different one-mana accelerants, because of the risk of Grafdigger's Cage coming down.
That's a big one. That's a great card against this Elves deck.
Yep. And if Ross is familiar with Andrew's list, he may bring in the discard spells alongside Abrupt Decay to fight over some of the creatures and permanents like Grafdigger's Cage.
Merriam going to draw a card. That's a copy of Misty Rainforest. Things do get much more difficult for Ross after sideboard. I feel like game one he's typically favored in this matchup, but after sideboard we went over it. A lot of great options for Tenjum.
There's no way Tenjum has this many cards in his sideboard for this matchup if he feels his game one is good. He's bringing a lot to the table.
Looks like Merriam going to go for a bit of a value glimpse here potentially.
A little bit of setup, though the deck can do quite a bit. It could be much greater than just a value glimpse from this spot.
See if Ross maybe has a Cradle to really get the ball rolling. Looks like it's just going to be a Misty. He's going to sacrifice that, so we'll see what land he opts to search up as he does go down to 18.
I would love to see the R&D discussion over about Glimpse. Because, you know, the file the last day, you're looking over all the cards, and someone's like, what do you think, 1 mana? Everyone's like, yeah, 1 mana sounds about right.
What's the worst that could happen? Oh, God!
Although, in fairness, there's a lot of standard formats you could play Glimpse and it wouldn't even matter.
Yeah,
it's a consequence of large card pools, but it's still, 1 mana seems like quite the discount on this effect.
It wasn't even a card during its standard format.
Yeah.
Here's a Heritage Druid. That'll cantrip again. Gonna keep it going now. Will Merriam untaps the Dried Arbor. Gonna play another Grand Ranger. That's 3 elves for Heritage Druid, so look at him go. Does he have more elves to play? Now, the interesting thing about this entire setup is, you know, and it looks like he has nothing else to do. I mean, he can get completely annihilated by a Charm or a Toxic Deluge now, but I think he's just got to do what he's got to do.
Yeah.
As him to Torak is the draw. I don't know if he has a Charm, but we'll see.
It's tough to play a waiting game against Shardless Bug because of brainstorms and ponders and such. It's possible because Ross has drawn a fair number of cards that he can survive a sweeper from this stage. He's got a nearly full hand to work with. The Quarian Ranger would be able to save the Dryad Arbor. I mean, it's not good for him to get hit with something like Toxic Deluge or Golgari Charm, but he at least has enough raw cards where he's probably able to keep playing.
Well, Tenjum's certainly going to think through his turn now. Looks like he has a Charm, but he's maybe a little hesitant to cast it. Thinking maybe he can get some more value, but if you can get a 4-for-1 out of this, I think you just take it.
Yeah, I like opening on this and just force Ross to respond.
Now, Quarian Ranger can't pick up the Dried Arbor to save it, so it's only going to be a 3-for-1 here, but still clearing away those is pretty good. There's a Creeping Tar. Potentially actually could have fired off a Wasteland there too, if he wanted to. He elected, not to. Maybe saving Wasteland for Dried Arbors. Yeah, Merriam just has to play Dried Arbor to pass the turn back. Tenjum draws a card. It's a copy of Ancestral Visions. That's a little late to the party. He's gripping that Wasteland pretty tightly now. You also see a Swamp over there in his hand. And it looks like we're going to go with a Hymn to start things off. So Merriam will shuffle up and discard 2 in just a moment here.
Him is interesting against Elves because Elves is kind of a critical mass deck, but so many of its pieces are redundant or overlap that it's rare that Him just blows someone out of the water. Though, we did see in game 1 that Him take the natural order, which would have killed Andrew had Ross been able to resolve it.
Merriam discards a Wirewood Symbiote. And a land, and now he loses a land to Wasteland before passing the turn back.
And it appears that Ross is flooding out again.
Yeah.
Only 20 lands in this deck.
He's drawn quite a few, though. Now, Tenjum's hand, truth be told, is not very good. The Tar Pit's going to provide the clock, but that ties up Tenjum's mana for the entire turn. As here comes the mighty Dried Arbor. Yeah, okay.
I like it.
Show him who you are.
Don't lay down.
Definitely not.
Just at least give him a jab, you know?
There's a Verdant Catacombs. Vision's going to tick down to 3 as Tenjum draws a card. It's another copy of Wasteland. You also see a Needle in his hand right now as well. There is the Wasteland. Going to fire that off on the Arbor. I think Tenjum may have a copy of Toxic Deluge in his hand as well. Gonna leave the Deathrite back on D, since he can activate the ability of that. Tenjum's doing a really nice job these couple of games, though.
Yeah. I mean, all he has to do is sort of keep everything contained and wait for that Visions to fire off. And then it finds him one more big spell. Even Force Will plus blue card probably does it from this spot, but a Deluge, a Golgari Charm, any of his sideboard cards, really, he should be good to go.
Merriam draws. Okay. That's a pretty good draw, actually. Copy of Sylvan Library. I'll actually get him back into this thing, potentially.
Yeah, given the pacing of this game, that's about as good as it gets. Ross needs more cards. It's being played at a slow pace. And Ross could untap, draw 3, and potentially go.
There is a Swamp. This will be a Tarmogoyf. So Tenjum now actually has a real clock in play. He's been holding that needle for some time now, so it's time to look at the library here for Merriam. Both players going to consult the graveyards to see exactly how large Tarmogoyf is. It's a 4/5. As Merriam does take a little look. And now it's time to go into the tank.
Because he still has a glimpse, so he can potentially do quite a bit this turn. And he wants to win the game quickly. He certainly does not want that Ancestral to go off.
Interestingly enough, if you didn't catch a glimpse of Merriam's hand, one of the cards that he's looking at is World Spine Worm. World Spine Worm, a great card in this matchup if he can get it into play. You know, Tenjum does have that copy of Toxic Deluge in his hand. I was thinking, okay, well, what can Ross actually natural order for to present as a threat? Forgot the World Spine Worm is an option. This thing is a 15/15, but when it dies, you get 3 5/5s in play. So Toxic Deluge doesn't actually solve the problem here.
Yeah, these decks often side into some natural order target that requires less setup in the post-board games than Critterhood Behemoth. Playing against more removal, more sweepers, you still want to be able to steal the game with natural order. So usually that card is Progenitus. Progenitus is much worse against a deck that's packing Liliana the Veil, may have Diabolic Edict in it for all you know. So World Spine Worm, much better against decks that have answers to Progenitus. And Ross, as has been his habit on camera recently, both flooding out and drawing his natural order targets.
He's been pretty good at that recently. That's for sure. Just going to play a Windswept Ether, it looks like, before passing the turn back, maybe. I mean, if he's able to set up this natural order for World Spine Worm, he might be able to win this one.
Yeah. Still very possible.
Vision's going to tick down even lower. It's down to 1, so it's going to go off next turn. That thing is a ticking time bomb. It's very scary to play against.
You got to act now.
There's the Verdant Catacombs. Tenjum's going to sacrifice that and go down to 18. Goes against a Trop.
That World Spine Worm is still definitely a way for Ross to steal this one. It is above average in size.
I'm trying to think of myself what a World Spine Worm would actually look like, you know, if it were attacking a town. It'd be pretty big.
It's probably, I don't know. I didn't actually see Godzilla in the theaters, but I imagine it's pretty close.
Yeah, maybe a little bit bigger than that. And then you kill it, and then there are 3 more worms left to kill you. Doesn't seem fair. Here's an attack for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it's going to go down to 7.
I like this attack a lot from Andrew.
Me too.
It limits the number of cards that Ross is able to look at with Sylvan Library or potentially draw. Also sets up for a lethal attack next turn. It's a lot of times where it's easy to sit around and fiddle around with the other resources, but in this spot I think Andrew is best served just trying to do as much damage as possible and try to set up lethal for next turn.
I think Merriam just sacked his fetch land and didn't find anything.
I think he's out of lands to
I think
fetch
he's
for.
out of lands?
Well, the deck only has Savannah Forest, 2 Bayou, 2 Dryad, but there's only 6 lands for this deck to search for.
Wow. Wow.
Ross is just catching the bad end of it in so many ways. mean,
glimpse.
now Ross is facing lethal next turn from Deathrite Shaman
Yeah.
and Creeping Tar Pit. So it's coming from two different sources, neither of which Ross can interact with.
You can definitely see a little bit of frustration with how these games have gone for Ross.
Yeah, this is tough.
Yeah, and he's just going to extend the hand. Tenjum's going to get the job done here. Charlotte's Bug will take down Elves in a matchup that I oftentimes feel is a little bit more favorable for Elves than it played out there. But, you know, I think Tenjum gave himself the best opportunity to win. Maybe got a little bit fortunate in game one with what he ran into with Brainstorm. But